What if I told you that God is about to make a move in your life? Maybe you've been waiting, praying, and wondering, when will it happen? Well, let me tell you something. When God steps in, everything changes. But here's the thing. Too often we miss the signs because we aren't paying attention. Right now, you need to hear this message. You need to listen carefully to what I'm about to share, because if you miss it, you might overlook the moment when God starts working wonders in your life. You see, when God acts, it's not always loud or obvious, but it's always life-changing. You might be on the edge of a breakthrough without even realizing it. So stay with me. Watch this until the end, because these next few minutes could be exactly what you've been waiting for. Don't click away. Don't get distracted. This might be the moment that opens your eyes to what God is already doing. There's a moment when everything shifts, when God steps into your life and begins to move. But here's the catch. God often enters quietly. It's not always a lightning bolt or a booming voice. Sometimes it's in the small, subtle things. Maybe it's a conversation that stirs something in your spirit, or a thought that won't leave your mind. These are the moments when divine intervention begins. But recognizing God's presence requires you to be still, to open your heart and to listen. The world is noisy, filled with distractions, and it's easy to overlook the gentle ways God speaks. You have to be tuned in. When God moves, He rearranges things. You'll notice doors closing that you thought should stay open, and paths opening up that you never considered. These aren't coincidences. They're God's fingerprints, guiding you toward His plan. So how do you know when God is acting? Look for the signs. Pay attention to the shifts in your circumstances. The things that start aligning aren't happening by chance. God is working even in the details. When you realize that, you'll see that divine intervention is happening all around you right now. When God steps into your life, one of the first places He begins to work is in your heart. The change is deep and it's personal. God doesn't just rearrange your circumstances, He transforms you from the inside out. Your heart, once burdened by pain, guilt, and fear, begins to heal. Those emotional wounds that you've carried for so long start to fade as God pours His love into the places where you need it most. This transformation isn't always easy. God will often bring to the surface things that you've been trying to ignore or hide. But understand this, it's not to hurt you, it's to heal you. God's love is like a refining fire, burning away the things that don't belong, making you stronger, purer, and more aligned with His will. And as your heart heals, your mind is renewed. Old patterns of thinking, those lies you've believed about yourself, the doubts that have held you back, are replaced with truth. You begin to see yourself the way God sees you, loved, worthy, and called to a higher purpose. This inner transformation is powerful, and it changes the way you see the world around you. Suddenly, life feels different. There's hope where there was once despair, peace where there was once anxiety. That's the power of God's love working within you. Once God has started transforming your heart, something amazing happens. You gain clarity. You begin to understand things that were once confusing, and life no longer feels aimless. This is the moment when God starts revealing His purpose for your life. For so long, you might have been asking, what am I supposed to do? Why am I here? And maybe you've tried to figure it out on your own, only to feel lost. But when God moves, He lifts the fog. He shows you what you were created for. You'll start to see patterns in your life, moments where God was leading you all along, preparing you for what's next. God doesn't create anyone without a plan, and that includes you. Your divine purpose has always been there, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And when you finally discover it, everything changes. You stop wandering and start walking with intention. Every day feels more meaningful because you're not just going through the motions anymore. You're living out your calling. You have a mission, and it's one that God has designed specifically for you. But here's something important. God's plan for you doesn't mean life will suddenly become easy. In fact, you'll face challenges, sometimes more than you did before. But these trials aren't there to break you. They're there to make you stronger. When God is working in your life, He allows certain challenges to come your way because they shape you. Every hardship is a tool God uses to build your faith, your character, and your resilience. And in those moments when you feel weak, That's when God's strength shows up the most. It's in the trials that you discover a new kind of strength. Not your own, but the strength that comes from God. You learn to rely on Him, not on your own understanding. You begin to trust that He is in control, even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. And as you persevere, you find a peace that goes beyond understanding. A peace that only comes when you know God is with you, guiding you through every storm. When God acts in your life, He provides abundantly. You've probably heard the phrase, God will supply all your needs. But maybe you've wondered, when? How? It's easy to doubt when things aren't happening on your timeline. But here's the truth. God's timing is perfect. His provision comes exactly when you need it, even if it's not when you expect it. And when He provides, it's not just enough, it's more than enough. You might be waiting for a breakthrough in your finances, a job opportunity, or even healing in a relationship. But the key is to trust that God sees the whole picture. He's not just meeting your immediate needs, He's setting you up for something greater. His provision often comes in ways you don't anticipate. It could be a new door opening, a connection you never expected, or even a lesson that prepares you for the blessing ahead. God is like a master craftsman, working behind the scenes to weave together the perfect plan for your life. But here's the thing. He wants you to trust Him in the waiting. Just like the Israelites in the desert had to trust God to send manna each day, we have to trust that God will send exactly what we need when we need it. It may not always come the way we imagine, but rest assured, His provision is always abundant and perfectly timed. So take heart. God will provide for you, and when He does, it will exceed your expectations. One of the most powerful things that happens when God steps into your life is the clarity of His guidance. Suddenly, you start to hear His voice more clearly. It's not necessarily a loud, booming voice. It might be a quiet nudge, a sense of peace, or an inner conviction. But when God guides you, you'll know. There's a certainty that comes with His direction, and it leads you into alignment with His will. Learning to follow God's voice is a journey. At first, it might be hard to discern what He's saying because we're so used to listening to our own thoughts, the opinions of others, or the noise of the world around us. But the more you lean into God, the more you seek Him in prayer and in His Word, the clearer His guidance becomes. You start to recognize the ways He speaks to you, and you begin to trust that He's leading you exactly where you need to go. God's guidance will often take you places you never imagined. He'll lead you to opportunities, relationships, and experiences that align perfectly with His plan for your life. But here's the key. You have to follow. It's one thing to hear God's voice, it's another to act on it. Sometimes His guidance will challenge you, push you out of your comfort zone, or require you to step out in faith. But when you follow, you'll find that His path always leads to something greater than you could have imagined on your own. When God acts in your life, miracles happen. And I don't just mean the kind of miracles you read about in the Bible. I'm talking about breakthroughs in your everyday life. These are the moments when God steps in and does something that you thought was impossible. Maybe it's a healing, a restored relationship, or a solution to a problem you've struggled with for years. When God moves, the impossible becomes possible. You might be thinking, but I've been waiting for a miracle for so long. I don't see anything happening. Trust me, I've been there too. But here's what I've learned. God's timing is always perfect, and His breakthroughs often come when you least expect them. Sometimes, it's right when you're about to give up that God shows up in the most powerful way. He loves to surprise us, to show us that He is always in control, even when things seem hopeless. These miraculous moments are reminders of God's power and love. They're a way of showing you that He is always with you, always working for your good. So if you're waiting for a breakthrough right now, don't lose hope. Keep trusting, keep believing, because when God acts, miracles happen. And when that breakthrough comes, it will be beyond anything you could have imagined. Every time God moves in your life, your faith grows. Think about it. When you see God act, when you witness His power firsthand, how can your trust in Him not deepen? Each step of the journey, every trial, every blessing is designed to strengthen your relationship with God. You begin to trust Him more with each passing day, because you see that He is faithful time and time again. The more you trust God, the more peace you find. You start to realize that you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, because God is in control. And the more you let go of trying to control everything, the more space you give God to work in your life. This deepened faith isn't about blind belief. It's about experience. It's about knowing that you've seen God act before and trusting that He will do it again. Faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And as you walk through life, trusting God in every step, you'll find that your faith becomes unshakable. You'll trust Him not just when things are going well, but even in the hardest times, because you know that He's never failed you, and He never will. When God is at work, He opens doors that no one else can. Maybe you've been knocking on certain doors for years, trying to make things happen in your own strength. But here's what you need to know. When God opens a door, it's effortless. The opportunities flow, the connections come together, and things fall into place in a way that only He can orchestrate. These new opportunities aren't random. They're part of God's plan for your life. He's preparing you for what's next, aligning you with the people, places, and experiences that will help you step into your purpose. It might not always look like what you expected, but when God opens a door, you can trust that it's the right one. But here's the thing. When a door opens, you have to walk through it. Too often we hesitate. We see the opportunity, but fear or doubt holds us back. Don't let that be you. When God opens a door, it's because He's prepared you for it. Trust Him. Take that step of faith and walk into the new season He's leading you into. Finally, when God acts in your life, the result is an overflowing sense of joy and peace. This isn't just happiness that comes and goes depending on your circumstances. It's a deep, abiding joy that comes from knowing God is with you. It's a peace that transcends understanding, a peace that remains even when life gets tough. This joy and peace are the fruits of living in God's presence. When you know that God is in control, that He is guiding your steps and providing for your needs, you can rest. You no longer have to worry about the future or stress about the challenges of today. God's got it, and that assurance fills your heart with peace. And here's the best part. This joy and peace aren't just for you. They overflow into the lives of those around you. When people see the peace you have in the midst of trials, the joy that radiates from you even in difficult times, they'll know that it comes from something greater, someone greater. That's the beauty of walking with God. His presence in your life brings joy, peace, and a sense of purpose that nothing else can. When God acts in your life, it's undeniable. From transformation to breakthrough, from new opportunities to overwhelming joy and peace, this is what happens when you allow God to move. So take a moment and reflect. Where is God working in your life right now? What doors is He opening? What wounds is He healing? Trust that He is at work, even if you can't see it yet. I encourage you to pray today and ask God to reveal His presence to you in a new way. If this message has touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let them know that God is moving and they don't want to miss it. Stay in faith, stay connected, and watch how God transforms your life. May His peace be with you, and may you continue to walk in the fullness of His plan. Amen. If you want to stay closer to God, subscribe to our channel. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect and share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like it and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.